So in the interview, genuinely, present your authentic self. And if it's a match, it'll happen. And if it's not, that's okay. At the end of the day, you need to be at a place that is supportive of you as a human and that is supportive of the development that you need.
Hello, everyone. I am very excited today because we are going to dive into admissions. So we have Dr. Leila Amiri. I'm sorry for that. I'll let you correct me if I said it incorrectly. But I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to working with urban medicine.
Sure. Hi, and really excited to be here with you on your podcast. And you did great with my name, so nothing to correct. This is it's a long story, and it happened just over the course of a career. So I didn't start out with the intent to become an admissions dean. I was actually on a different career trajectory. I was on my way to earning a Ph.D. in neuroscience and going to be a faculty member in the neuro area. And along the way, I happened to find my love with advising. And so I became a peer advisor as an undergraduate. And to make a long story short, one thing led to another, and I ended up having a full-time job as director of advising at my institution, and ultimately fell in love with the pre-med students because of their passion and their commitment and, the vision that they had for themselves and their careers and how they were all going to change the world. And so that's how I ended up in medical school. Admissions was really just by chance, by falling in love with the other work that I was doing. And that's brought me here now.
I love that because I love to tell our students, the majority of our listeners are pre-meds and medical students. And a lot of times they come in with one set of desires of go to school, become a cardiologist, become an orthopedic surgeon. But life is so funny that there are journeys and sometimes there are little curves. So just go with it and you'll figure out how to find your place. So you found your place as the Dean of Admissions. So I just want to talk a little bit about the process for students who may be applying in the next year. So what are some of the top things that you see in a successful applicant?
The first thing that I would like to say is that, there isn't a specific time that students should apply. So I know that we think there's a perfect timing of the application, and generally it's between the junior and senior year of college, and that's changing. So the first thing that I would tell applicants is apply at the time when you feel that you're ready and that you're certain that this is what you absolutely want to do, because this is not an easy path. The road to becoming a physician is difficult. It's long. And at a time when, friends are having fun and, they're making money, here you are as a student, and now you've still got some more training to do as a resident. And so I think that's going to be the most important piece. The other piece that I want to encourage, the audience to think about is the personal why. So why is it that this is something that you absolutely must do? And this is where you will find your personal and professional satisfaction. So be certain that it's a good time for you to apply, that you've done everything that you need to do, and that you are ready not only academically, but also emotionally. Are you coming off of a difficult year academically just because it was really hard? It was your senior year in college and it was a lot of things going on. Is it, coming off of a master's degree? So where are you in your journey, and are you prepared emotionally and mentally as well for this arduous journey of, launching into medicine? And then the final piece would be really do your research before you apply to school. So figure out those places that really are mission aligned. So your personal why should be very similar to the personal why of the school. So social justice medicine, for example, is something that's important for an applicant, then the school should have that. And you know what? If they don't have it, that's okay. You just don't apply to that school. There's over 150 medical schools in the country. And so there's lots of places, allopathic medical schools. And so there's lots of opportunities for students to apply to different places that are aligned with what they're interested in doing, in addition to obviously becoming a competent physician, which will happen wherever they pursue their education as well. So this is while the profession is about being, helping others, the educational part of it is about the learner, because the learner really has to be in an environment that is supportive of them as an individual and that is supportive of their development.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that you hit on a lot of good points. Number one, figuring out if it's the right time. You don't always have to go directly from undergrad to medical school. You can take breaks. You can go and learn. You can do another whole field. I always tell students that there's absolutely anything that you can consider being or doing aside from being a doctor. Try that first. And then if you still have that passion, then you can go into medical school, which is kind of weird, but there are so many things out there. The curriculum is so strenuous. You dedicate a lot of time to others, which is great. And that can be a part of your why, like you were saying. But you have to be kind of sure that this is the path that you want to take, because number one, medical school is very expensive. So make sure that you actually have the passion to get through. And once you get through, you want to still practice. And number two, it's not for everybody. So you may have that why of you love helping people, but I'm sure we'll hit on that. But helping people, there has to be a little bit more, because there are so many ways to help people aside from being a physician. You can be a social worker, you can be a nurse, you can be in admissions, you can help people from so many different ways. So you have to really sit and think about what your purpose is and your why. And sometimes it may take a little while to get to that point. So you mentioned that, of course, like surprise, some people have some blemishes on their application, things such as low MCAT scores or undesirable grades and things like that. How would you suggest that someone address that when they're applying to schools?
So I think it's rare for a applicant to have a perfect application. And by perfect application, I mean an application that hits everything that every medical school in the country would want. And so let's talk about the academics piece first. I think students feel that particularly the MCAT is the thing that's keeping them out of medical school. And so I think that students should be comfortable with science content. And so, and they should look at national standards of admission. So when you look at the average person who's admitted to medical school, what does that look like, first and foremost? And where do you fit with that average, right? And so the reason that academics are important for me as an admissions dean is because I want to be sure that I'm inviting the person to join our medical school who will be able to thrive and be successful, who's studying medicine will be, it'll be difficult, obviously, because, learning the material is hard, but who's equipped with what they need to move forward. And so, look at your grades. If you've been struggling in the sciences, maybe you need to do a post-bac, maybe you need to do a master's. And I think there's a lot of help out there. And so if a student is at a school that has a pre-med advising office, they should definitely meet with the pre-med advising office. If they don't, they can reach out to me, not for me to advise them, but I have a friend who does this kind of work, and they are happy to provide support. There's also the National Association of the Advisors of the Health Professions. And so, figure out where your academics are. It's not the same solution for everybody. What is not a good thing to do is to, if you got a C in a class, is to retake that class, right? Because you better get an A in that class, because if you got a C the first time and you don't get an A the second round, it's going to be a little iffy. Is organic chemistry really something that's a hiccup for you? And two, in terms of it helping with you to boost your GPA, it doesn't that much, because it all goes into the same pile. And as you increase the numerator, the denominator increases as well. And so does a post-bac make sense? Does a master's make sense? Which of those two makes sense? I think that's the only place where students think about blemishes, because experiences, it wouldn't be a blemish. A student may have less than a desirable amount of experiences. I think generally in all the medical schools, we kind of want the same stuff, right? We want a person to have a familiarity with the field. And so having had some medical exposure is important. And what that looks like will be what an individual has been able to have access to. So were you able to volunteer at a hospital Did you have the time and the resources to, for example, become a CNA or phlebotomist? Do you have that kind of experience? What type of medical exposure have you had? The second piece is service. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a service-oriented profession, and folks have to dig really deep to help some of those patients, right? And so we want to know that helping others is part of the fiber of who you are as an individual. So there needs to be some service. We want some leadership in there. If you look at the mission of every medical school, regardless of whether they're community-based or academic, medical center, all of us want to educate the future leader physicians of our local and global communities. And so it's good for you to have some leadership as you're coming into this process. And we also want to know that you're a good peer, because you will be working alongside a team of individuals, first your classmates, and then as you progress in the profession and as you graduate and launch your career, with other parahealth care providers. And so how do you function with the nurses and the physical therapists and all of the other individuals that will help you, take care of a person? And so is not having one of those a blemish? And that's not a universal response either, because if a student has had to work, at a fast food restaurant because they needed food and shelter, we're not going to hold that against them. And so there's an understanding of that. So my takeaway is contextualize the application within you as an applicant, and then second, the institution. What were you able to do with the time and resources that were available to you, and how did these make sense? The other thing that I might think of as a blemish is an institutional action. So, were you cited for plagiarism? Were you cited for unprofessional conduct at your institution? Were you, noisy at in the dorms, and were you called out on that? And did you have to do something for that? Is that a blemish? It's an incident. And so I think being open and honest about it and helping the committee understand completely what happened. Sometimes you don't know why it happened. It just happened because you were being young and it happened. And, what have you learned from that, and what's the takeaway? So it's going to vary from person to person.
Definitely. And I think that that's the key point, is that with life, different things vary. We have these guidelines and these key points that we want to look at when we are looking for future doctors of America and when we have a pile of applicants, but everyone is unique, even if they're hitting a lot of the same things. So I love the first point that you made about meeting with your advisor to look and see if this is for you. For people who know that they're going into medicine, I would suggest doing it on a regular basis, maybe meeting with them your freshman year and seeing like, okay, these are the courses I'm planning to take over the next 4 years. These seem like the courses that align with what it's going to do in order for you to become a physician, because all schools don't have a pre-med major, or you may be in a major that's outside of science, which I also would recommend for some people, because a lot of people think that you have to be a biology or a chemistry major to go into medical school. And actually in undergrad, this can be a time where you can explore the things outside of science. I was a boring bio major, so I won't knock it too hard, but I was very envious of my colleagues who, when we went to medical school, was like, oh, I was in engineering, or I was an English major, or something like that. So you can definitely get into medical school without being a science major. I would also agree with the point that you were saying about your blemishes. So if you have an undesirable grade, like don't take it again and get a C, like figure out the ways that you can discuss what was going on in your life and things like that. Service, of course, important. Leadership is important. You're going to be leaders of healthcare. You're going to lead teams in the future. But if you had life happen to you, because sometimes life is real and you had to work, or you had to take care of a family member and you couldn't commit to certain things, it doesn't always count you out, but definitely highlight what you were doing and your why and your reason and why you want to go into medical school. So love all of the things that you shared. What are some things that you would recommend that applicants avoid doing in their application and interviewing process?
Yeah, so I'd like to take the interviewing process first, because I I get the sense that applicants are trying to answer questions the way that they think we want them to answer it. And that's not true. So I'm at the University of Vermont, and we're a smaller medical school with 124 students in a small state in the country. And with that small size, I still get 9,000 applications a year. Right? So I get a bunch of applications. And I meet about 620 of those applicants. And so we work extremely hard to find the individuals who have communicated a personal why and a personal mission that's in alignment with the mission that we have for the institution. And so the person that we want to meet is the person that they are, not the person that they think we want them to be. That never works because we don't know each other well enough and they can't predict what the expectation is. So I would invite all of your audience members to be their true, authentic self in the interview. And you know what? If your true, authentic self is not what the school wants, that's fine. That's not the right place for you. It takes so much energy to try to be something that a person isn't. It's not worth it. Med school is difficult enough with the content and the demands and the, very variety of demands, which, med school is very different than what's happening in undergraduate or even, graduate and Ph.D. programs. And so it's hard enough without a person trying to be something that they aren't. So in the interview, genuinely, present your authentic self. And if it's a match, it'll happen. And if it's not, that's okay. At the end of the day, you need to be at a place that, and you've heard me say this already during the past, time that we've been together, you need to be at a place that is supportive of you as a human and that is supportive of the development that you need. In the application itself, I would, the various parts of it. And so I think I'd like to start with the personal statement because the personal statement is your personal why. And it helps us understand who you are as an applicant. And not all medical schools feel the same way about the written part of the application, and not all medical schools feel the same way about the essay. But what I would say is that the essay for schools that care about it, like me, we want it to be a description of why is it that that was you have to do. And so I would like to know why you want to be a physician, as well as your parents know and your significant other and your best friends know, because these are just words on a screen. And so I don't have the privilege of a student sitting across from me as I'm reading the personal statement. And so don't make me work too hard to figure out, the why. The why should be readily apparent in what I'm reading. And then the experiences that you've done should support that. Now, within that description, I would invite, applicants to think about if they decide to use an analogy, for example, use an analogy that makes sense for you. So, for example, we get the running a marathon and we get climbing a mountain and all of those things. And, help me understand why applying to med school was like a marathon for you. Help me understand why this was, like climbing a mountain for you, because I may not know. And when I say that, I am not talking about just myself. I'm talking about all the admissions officers around the country who are going to read that application. Context is so important. The application is successful that makes complete sense. So what you've done, what you say, and what you've done go hand in hand to help us understand why this is the right choice for you.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that you mentioned in the beginning about being yourself, because it's very difficult to get across your point when you know that there are so many students. I mean, you said 9,000 applicants and you only interview about 600. And with that, like you're getting there and you know that all of them students are amazing. Even those, just for you guys who may have not gotten an interview, like you're also amazing. It's just the competition is out there. So you want to put your best foot across, but you also, like you said, want to be at a place you're going to be there for at least 4 years. So you want to be at a place that feels like home to you, where you can join extracurricular activities, where you can go out in the town and And of course, you'll be studying a lot, but these are relationships that you will meet. I've graduated a while ago for the listeners out there. And my medical school classmates are some of my best friends. So these are people who will be with you for a lifetime that you'll share your medical journey with. So you want to feel like you're a part of a place where you belong. And as you mentioned earlier, if you are so dedicated to something like social justice and there's not a lot of that going on in the school and your application is about that, like, don't try to downplay that or switch that out because this school's mission is about something else. So that's why it's so important to kind of explore the website, talk to people who've been to the school, look into it so you can learn about the environment and if it's the right place for you, because you have to want them as much as they want you. One of my next questions is about reapplication. So as you mentioned, it's very competitive to get interviews and then to move forward. So if you're interviewing hundreds of people, but your class size is only 125, everyone may not get in on the first round and they may have to reapply. What is something that makes a reapplicant stand out?
So I want to first start with the person who doesn't get an interview. So if an applicant applies and gets 0 interviews and they had it made sense for them to apply, I think they should look to see what the fatal flaw might have been in their application and determine what that is and make sure that that is addressed before they move forward. I think for individuals that do interview, it's exactly what you mentioned. Sometimes there's just not enough space in the class, right? I mean, if you make offers and the offers stick and you don't go to the wait list, then all of those people that you met and were hoping to admit, they don't become part of the class because the first round of offers that an individual made were enough. I think the application needs to be substantively different the next round and help us understand how that's different. So if what I tell my advisees is when you hit submit, and I know this is going to sound negative, but hear me out. Assume that you're not getting in this year. And if so, you're not getting in this year, what are the things that you can work on this application cycle so that if you end up having to reapply next year, you get to talk about that? Because if you wait for a rejection notice, which may be as late as second week of August for some schools, or third week of August, or even September, depending on when they start. Well, the application process has already started. May 1, AMCAS opened. And so how is your application different from last year? It may not be different at all. And so diagnosing that and repairing it, there's not enough time for that to happen. So when you hit submit, really sit and look at your application with a critical eye and assume that you're not getting in. If you're not getting in, what is it that you can enhance in your application? And if there's nothing, what would you benefit from doing this year? At the end of the day, if a person doesn't get in, even though they had a strong application and it was just because of the numbers, those extra things that they've done in that year will do nothing but just help. So if they get in, having had more clinical experience, doubling up on their research, having more leadership, none of that hurts. I mean, it's all great experiences that the person takes to the medical school with them. And if they don't get in, then that's application, the second round, is that much stronger because there's those additional things on it. And so, I think folks need to look at their metrics, folks need to look at their experiences and at the written parts of their essay and see how can they help us understand what growth they've had over the course of this past year.
I think that you said all of the important things. I won't even add anything to that. My next question is a fun question. It's actually my last question. I love to ask all my guests this, and it'll be interesting because you don't practice medicine, but everyone is involved in the healthcare system. So we know that the U.S. healthcare system is so perfect and it doesn't need any changes, but if you had a magic wand, what is one thing that you would change about the healthcare system?
about the system in its entirety, I would like the system to, obviously access is one of the biggest issues that we deal with within the U.S., having access to treatments, to necessary treatments. And I would also think, and I would hope that the system is catered to the different needs that our patients have. And so if we have enough healthcare providers that can look at you as a patient and can look at me as a patient and understand really, how are we different as individuals and what are those specific needs that we have, I think that would be my dream, is to have access and to have healthcare that is preventative and that is appropriate and for all of the individuals that we have, and have education at the level where we can truly be, as patients, where we can truly be partners with our healthcare providers. I think our providers don't have enough time. We show up in the office, there's 15, 20 minutes that they can spend with us because there's 50 people that they need to see that day. And so it's difficult to take care of all of the patients that show up. So we need more great physicians like you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We definitely need to have people who are working on prevention, more access to care. We definitely need people to make education understandable for patients because they have to carry it out. And we know that the health literacy rate is different. And then I also agree, we need to make more physicians, and that may be something we can advocate in terms of the GME, in terms of having more spots available so our class sizes can kind of fit the need. So I really appreciate you sharing all of your pearls of wisdom with us. I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell our audience goodbye.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated this opportunity to meet with you and to speak with your audience. Good luck to all of you. This is your dream to realize, so don't give up. There's different ways to do this.
Awesome. And for all of the listeners out there, feel free to share this with all of your friends who are in the application process or who may be applying next year so that you guys can plan. Also, click that subscribe button if you haven't. Leave us some comments and let us know what you want to hear and who you want to hear it from. Definitely go to my Instagram at Dr. D Graham, DOCTOR, the letter D, Graham, GRAM, and let me know who you want me to interview next. If you're a student who's going through the process, if you are a resident who's already been through it, we'd love to hear from you guys too. So definitely reach out in our DMs, and you can also reach out at Med School Coach at our Instagram as well. So I'll see you guys next week with another fantastic guest. Bye.
Each episode of the Prospective Doctor podcast is brought to you by Med School Coach. To access articles, videos, webinars, and free tools to help you succeed on your journey toward med school and beyond, visit our website, prospectivedoctor.com. We hope you tune in again next time.